Hello everybody, it's Mr. Q again. What's up? I hope you guys are staying safe and having fun. Today we continue with part 5 of our travel series, and today this will be part 2. And we will focus on what will happen between your home and the ticket counter. So, part 2 of this multi-part, part 5 of our travel series. Alright guys, let's get into it. You started your trip, you're on the way to the airport. So, what should you expect between your home and the ticketing counter? Well, the first thing you need to think about is how much time do you need to get from your home to the airport? And even more importantly, how much time do you need to get through the airport and to your gate? It's very hard to calculate this. So first, you need to decide how long is it going to take you to get from your house to the airport, and add that time to the times I'm about to discuss. Now, the times I'm about to discuss are minimums, and they might even be assuming that you're running sometimes, because some of these airports are huge. So these numbers I'm about to tell you are estimates. They're minimums. At the very least, you should probably have this amount of time. And let's talk about how much time you might need to get through the airport, in addition to the time you've already calculated to get from your house to the airport. So I'm going to work backwards with my time frame here that I'm about to tell you. Alright? So you start with the gate usually closes about 15 minutes before the flight is supposed to leave. So if you get there after 15 minutes, they might give you a hard time about getting on the plane. So it's best to get there before 15 minutes. Next, it's going to take you probably at least 15 minutes to get from the last security check to your gate. Minimum. It will probably take you longer. Some airports are huge, like I said, and it will take you much longer than 15 minutes. So you will have to be running to make 15 minutes. Some are small. Some airports are small, and it only takes a few minutes. Remember, these are estimates. I say this is a minimum 15 minutes to get from the last security checkpoint to your gate. Also, going through all the security measures, I always give myself a minimum of a half hour. You could probably use more, especially if it's going to be busy that day and you know it. A minimum, right? 30 minutes. How long does it take you to get through customs if you're flying internationally? Sometimes that can take a half hour or longer, especially if it's very busy. Guys, these are minimums. And it might take you a half hour to check in, especially if you have to go to the ticket counter and wait in line and all that stuff. So if you add all that up, 30 minutes to check in, 30 minutes for customs, 30 minutes for security, 15 minutes to get to the gate, and then 15 minutes before your flight leaves. That is 2 hours, guys. I recommend 2 hours before your flight is when you arrive at the airport. So you need to leave however long before that to get from your home to the airport. So if it takes you a half hour or an hour to get to the airport, you might need to leave 3 hours in advance. All right? So keep all that in mind. I recommend at least 2 hours to get to your gate once you arrive at the airport, especially if you're flying internationally.
Line up in front of the van.
Did you take my batteries? Come on, you guys. Line up and shut up. Shut up. I gotta take a head count. 1, 2,
11,
3,
92,
4, 5.
12.
Buzz, don't be a moron.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, half in this van, half in this van. Let's go.
Have a good trip. Bring me back something French.
There's no way on earth we're gonna make this plane. It leaves in 45 minutes.
Think positive, Frank.
You be positive. I'll be realistic.
Ma'am, excuse me, I just wanted to let you know that your power is fixed, but the phone lines are a mess. It's gonna take Ma Bell a couple of days to patch them up, especially around the holidays.
Hey, thanks. Heather, did you count heads?
11, including me. 5 boys, 6 girls, 4 parents, 2 drivers, and a partridge in a pear tree.
Out of all the reindeers, you know you're the mastermind. Run, run, Rudolph. Randolph ain't too far behind. Run, run, Rudolph. Santa's gotta make it to town. Santa making very telling he can take the freeway down. Run, run, Rudolph. Feeling like a merry-go-round.
Hold the play.
Did we miss the flight?
No, you just made it.
All right, you've arrived at the airport, but maybe you're at a big airport, and which entrance do you go in? You have to pay attention to the signage. Guys, as soon as you get to the airport, getting into the airport, driving into the airport, you have to pay attention to the signs. Sometimes they can be confusing, but as long as you pay attention, you should be okay. But notice that many airports organize the entrances based on the airline carriers. So, like the first exit might be for certain airlines. And then the next entrance will be for other airlines. Guys, if you go in the wrong entrance, you might have to walk a long ways to get to your airline counter. So it's very important. Watch the signs. Get out where it says for you to get out for your airline. You can see that this entrance is for Southwest Airlines. Don't go in this entrance unless you are flying with Southwest Airlines. You will have a longer walk to your ticket counter. A cool thing that some airlines offer is called a sky cap. And what this is you have a service that meets you at the curb. So if you take a taxi or if somebody drops you off, you could go to the sky cap and check in and check your bags with them. The problem is they usually charge a fee for this service. And sometimes it can save you some time over standing in line at the ticket counter. But guys, remember, if you're flying internationally, you might have to go to the ticket counter anyways because they have to verify your passport and visa. So it's very important that even though it might be tempting to use the sky cap, you might not want to. But if you're not flying internationally, and especially if you don't have any checked baggage, you can check in with the sky cap and it might save you some time. So you might want to check into that. They can check your bags and give you a boarding pass right there. They don't have a lot of detailed information about the flight, so it's not good to use the sky cap if you want to discuss your flight with the ticketing agents. So as soon as you get out of your car, there might be a service for you to check in. You can use this if you want to potentially skip some lines at the ticket counter, but just remember, it will almost certainly cost you more money. Some airports, before you even walk into the actual airport, they do a explosives and chemical check. So you might notice that they have a wand and then they'll touch your bag or they'll wipe your hands with it to see if you have any dangerous chemicals on you. And this could be the first of a couple different security checks that you might have to go through at your airport. Just be aware that sometimes that can take some extra time to deal with. You can see here the wand they're using to test things for explosives and dangerous chemicals. But remember, they have to test everybody, and they don't just test you and let you go. They usually test people and then make them group up for a minute, and then they let them go. So this can take some extra time at the airport. So, you know, if you know your airport does this, you might want to schedule some extra time for that. Once inside the airport, if you've already checked in online and you don't have any bags to check and you're not flying internationally, sweet. You just go straight to security and then onto your gate. So that's a great reason to check in online. Now, if you're flying internationally, you might not have that option, even if you're not checking a bag, because they need to check your passport and visa. Guys, it's very important that you understand where you can travel and when you can travel, and that you have the proper documents to travel. Because if any of those are not correct, you won't be allowed to go. So, and even if you are allowed to go, you may be turned away at the border. So airlines at the ticketing counter tend to be very strict when they look at these things to make sure that you are entitled to go to where you're supposed to go on your trip. So they will need to verify your passport, make sure it's valid. They need to verify your visa to make sure that you're allowed to travel to that country. And nowadays, you guys have to worry about, well, were you there 14 days so that you were self-quarantined or whatever, right? But sometimes you don't think about that there are certain countries in the world that other countries don't want people flying from their country to their country. So then they might not allow you to fly directly from that country to the country you want to go to. So it's very important to check into that and make sure that you meet all the requirements and have all the documentation you need so that you can travel without any problems. And what I mean by problem is that the ticketing counter can turn you away and tell you you can't fly because you don't have a visa for that country. Or this is what happened to me when I was traveling this, like we were only there for 12 days, but we needed to be there for 14 days. So we had to wait 2 more days before we could fly again. So you have to pay attention to stuff like that and know, because nowadays the airlines have changed their policies to make it not their fault. They make it your fault if you don't understand. And so that way, if it's your fault, they're not required to reimburse you. They're not required to give you a refund or to help you. They probably will, but they're not required to. So it's very important that you pay attention and make sure that you are cleared to fly. The fun thing nowadays is that many airlines have installed self-check-in kiosks or machines that can check you in at the airport, and these are in front of the ticketing counter. So you go to the machine and you check in, and then all you have to do is take your bag to the counter, and then the lady will put a thing on there and you're good to go. You don't have to talk to them hardly anymore. That's not in all airports, but that's in some airports, and so that can help expedite, make things faster if they have those. And remember, when checking your bags, to secure your straps. Even if it's a suitcase, secure your straps, especially if it's a backpack. I showed you what happened to my backpack when there was a problem and half my belt got ripped off, right? Make sure you secure your straps, because the airport and the airline does not take responsibility for damage like that to your bag. And I complained a lot, and I got a tiny little something that doesn't even compensate me for it. So protect yourself, protect your bags. All right? So if you have to go to the ticketing counter, this could be okay too, even if you've already checked in, because it gives you one more opportunity to select your seats, right? Maybe when you checked in or bought them originally, you couldn't sit next to each other, or maybe you couldn't get a window seat, but occasionally seats open. And so at the ticketing counter, sometimes they can make that arrangement for you and they can change your seat. So this is one more opportunity for you to change your seat. Maybe you want a window seat, maybe you want an aisle seat, maybe you want more of your family sitting together, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's up to you, and this is your chance to try to make that happen. It might not happen, but this is your chance. All right? And so even if you've done it online, you can still make a second request once you get to the ticketing counter. So once you're all checked in and you're ready to go to security or customs, whichever the case may be, before you leave the ticketing counter, look at your boarding pass and your ticket. Verify your seats. Verify your departure time. And verify your gate. Check to make sure that all of those are what you already knew or what you've been told. All right? And if they're different, check. And then continue on. All right? And once again, don't put your passport and your boarding pass and stuff somewhere where it's hard to get to. You guys are going to need these things throughout the airport multiple times. So you don't want them to be hard to get to. You want to be able to access them easily so that you can show them to whoever and continue on your way without holding up the line of people behind you while they wait for you to get out your passport and your boarding pass. All right, guys. Today we've talked about arriving at the airport and paying attention to what entrance you need to go into based on your airline carrier. We talked about the SkyCap and how they can be helpful, but if you're traveling internationally, there's not usually a service you want to use. We talked about making sure that you're prepared and haven't brought anything with you that are against airport and airline policies. Of course, you cannot bring any explosives or dangerous chemicals or things that are too sharp or other. There's a lot of things. You just have to pay attention to that. Because if you leave something unattended, they might think it's an explosive device and they might damage and you might not get your baggage back. So make sure you don't bring anything you're not supposed to bring. We talked about the ticket counter and how they have self check-in kiosks to help with the process of checking in sometimes. And all you do is just scan your passport and type in your name and you're checked in. It's that easy, right? When you check your bags, make sure you secure your straps. I cannot repeat this enough, guys. Secure your straps. Don't let there be anything hanging off of your suitcase or bag that shouldn't hang off your bag that can easily be taken off, all right? And if you have to go to the ticketing counter, it's a good opportunity to check your seats. Maybe there's some better seats that you could get. And so, or maybe you can sit with somebody that you weren't being able to sit with before. All right? But either way, the ticketing counter, the people there can help you with your flight, or they can cause you to not get your flight if you don't have all your visas and passports, and if you haven't been cleared to fly because you haven't been somewhere for 14 days or whatever. So make sure you have meet the flight requirements when you go for your flight, right? Once you get your boarding pass, verify your seat, your departure time, and your gate. Because at the airport, all of those things can change frequently, especially the departure time and the gate. All right? So you're going to need your passport and your boarding pass multiple times throughout the airport, so don't put them someplace hard to get to. Keep them easily accessible so that you can get to it easily. And I recommend getting to the airport at least 2 hours, especially if you're flying internationally, before your flight. Alright? So, today, your homework. I want you guys to think about how much time you think you need to get to the airport and through the airport. I want you guys to think about how you can get through the airport more easily. And I want you guys to be thinking about what do you think might happen when you get to the airport, right? So, I want you to write these things down. Things about what you can do at the airport to go through the airport faster, about checking in. Are you going to need to check in a bag? And verifying all of your information before you continue. All right? So, write all that down, and when you're finished, share it with your classmates. All right, guys, I'll see you next time when we begin the next part of this multi-part session for part 5 of our travel series. All right, stay safe, keep having fun. See you next time. Bye-bye.